Right now, we're smack in the middle of a full-blown AI gold rush. I mean, billions and billions of dollars are being thrown at finding the next huge breakthrough. But here's the thing, while the boardrooms are just buzzing with all this hype, the reality on the ground, in our actual offices, is a whole lot messier. So this explainer, we're going to dig right into that clash, the massive investment versus the frustrating day-to-day reality.
And just to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this gold rush, look at this number. $20 billion. That's what Nvidia thinks it's going to make every single year just from selling to entire countries that are building their own AI factories. We're not talking about a few startups buying some GPUs here. This is about national ambition, and the money involved is just staggering.
Okay, but here is the paradox. While nations are dropping billions on AI infrastructure, a study from Harvard Business Review found that 40% of employees feel like they're literally drowning in what they call work slop. That's AI-generated stuff that looks polished on the outside but is actually useless, and it ends up creating more work, not less. So what is going on here?
All right, let's start by following the money. In our first section, we're diving deep into the AI gold rush. This incredible frenzy for capital, for computing power, and maybe most importantly for the human talent that can actually make all of this stuff work.
You see, the real battle in this gold rush isn't for computer chips, it's for people. Just look at what Meta is doing. They are reportedly throwing around compensation packages that look more like what you'd give to buy a whole company, not hire one person. Now, even if those exact billion-dollar figures are up for debate, it just shows you where the real priority is. The number one takeaway here is that the scarcest resource isn't the hardware. It's the handful of brilliant minds who can build the future.
And right at the center of this whole ecosystem is Nvidia, and they are playing this fascinating double game. On one hand, they are selling the picks and shovels, the essential hardware, to literally everyone in the gold rush. But on the other hand, they've become this massive venture capitalist, funding the very companies that are going to turn around and buy their hardware.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. That bar on the left, that's the $20 billion they're making from countries. The one on the right shows their explosion in startup deals. They're on track to do more this year than all of last year combined. It is an absolutely brilliant move. They are literally funding their own future customers, locking in an entire ecosystem that's built on their tech.
Okay, so that's the view from 30,000 feet, right? The big money, the big strategy. But now, in Section 2, let's come back down to earth and see how this all actually lands on the ground. This is the enterprise reality check, where all that hype meets the hard, messy work.
So let's really dig into this term, work slop. The HBR study defines it as that perfectly formatted email or that slick-looking presentation that AI spits out, but when you look closer, it's shallow, it's inaccurate, or it just completely misses the point. So instead of saving you time, it becomes this new, kind of soul-crushing job, fixing the AI's homework.
And this, right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. It's not the AI's fault. According to that same study, the blame lies with a lack of strategy from the top. If leadership doesn't set clear goals, redesign how work gets done, and actually train people properly, you don't get a productivity revolution. You just get more sophisticated-looking slop.
Let's take a super high-stakes field like law. Look at this. Adoption is happening incredibly fast. 60% of lawyers are already using generative AI. But a lot of this is still just dipping a toe in the water, as they try to figure out how to get all the benefits without the potentially career-ending risks.
And believe me, those risks are very, very real. Deloitte had to refund almost $100,000 for a government report where the AI just made stuff up. It hallucinated entire citations. This is such a powerful reminder that in the professional world, plausible looking is not the same thing as correct, and the consequences can be seriously costly.
So this brings us to the fundamental challenge, doesn't it? How do we actually tame this wild technology? In Section 3, we're going to look at the real efforts being made to solve these core problems, like hallucinations, and create some reliable ways to measure performance.
The whole debate around hallucinations is really fascinating. On one side, you have researchers at places like OpenAI who argue it's basically an evaluation problem. We train models to always give an answer, so of course they learn to bluff. Their solution? Start penalizing them for confident mistakes and actually reward them for saying, I don't know. But critics argue it's just an inherent feature. These things mimic language. They don't understand truth, so making things up is just what they do.
And the stakes for getting this wrong are sky high. That incident with Elon Musk's Grok chatbot producing hateful content is a perfect and frankly scary example. Releasing these powerful tools without the right safety guardrails isn't just a PR headache. It can cause real, measurable harm out in the world. But it's not all doom and gloom. To fight these issues, the industry is getting really serious about creating clear benchmarks. Take this new leaderboard for speech-to-text AI. What it proves is that there's no single best model for everything. The big takeaway is that specialized tools are often way better for a specific job. This kind of transparent benchmarking is exactly what we need to move past the hype and actually help people choose the right tool.
Okay, now let's switch gears to something we all rely on, our own ears. A recent study played AI-cloned voices for people, and 58% of the time, those people thought they were listening to a real human. Let that sink in for a second. More than half the time, we can't tell the difference anymore. And that leads to this huge, profound question. The ear test is officially broken. If we can't trust what we hear with our own ears, our entire model of what trust even means has to change. It has to shift from just perception to actual verification. And that has massive implications for everything from phone scams to digital identity.
So with all these risks out there, how do we move forward? Responsibly? Well, that brings us to our final section, building the guardrails. We're going to look at the really constructive work being done on governance, data, and fairness.
Take governance, for instance. Instead of just writing abstract papers, countries like Oman are creating practical playbooks. They start with global standards, sure, but then they build a concrete management system and bring everyone to the table, legal, social, economic, to create rules that actually work for their specific culture. It's a real blueprint for turning theory into practice.
You know, a huge piece of responsible AI is just having good data. The FAIR2 initiative is tackling a massive problem. Some estimates say 80% of all research data just sits in a digital drawer somewhere, totally unused. By making that data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, they're building the foundation we need for much more reliable and robust AI. And this is so important. Fairness is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It is deeply cultural. That's why this project from India is such a big deal. IndiCasa is a brand new benchmark designed to check for AI bias through an Indian lens, measuring things like sensitivity to caste and religion, factors that a model built and trained in Silicon Valley would almost certainly miss. This is a huge step toward building AI that actually works for everyone. So when you put all these pieces together, you can actually start to see a blueprint for trustworthy AI taking shape. It has to start with better data, made possible by things like FAIR2. It needs better context, using tech that helps AI understand the relationships between facts. And finally, it absolutely demands better, culturally aware evaluation, using benchmarks like IndiCasa. Which leaves us with the one big question, hanging over everything. We've seen the frenzy of the gold rush and the messy reality on the ground. We've looked at the deep technical problems and the promising solutions that are starting to form. But as the pace of this just keeps getting faster and faster, are we building the guardrails faster than we're digging for gold? That, I think, is the question for the years ahead.